Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us this morning. And welcome to our annual Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day program. So, the program is produced as usual by members of our planning committee. And by the way, I'm Bomani Moyenda. I'm your MC for today. So, this year, because of the pandemic, of course, we've chosen to present our program in a pre recorded format. We'd certainly prefer the gift of gathering together with everyone, but that not being possible, we hope that you enjoy our program anyway. And we look forward to the days where, we can gather together again. The theme for this year's program is Where Do We Go From Here? Hope and Expectations. It's adapted from the title of Dr. King's final book, published in 1968, titled Where Do We Go From Here? Chaos or Community? So every year, the members of the committee, we work very thoughtfully to select a program and a theme that considers Dr. King's message and also reflects on current social and political climate, and urges members of the community to, engage in activities that reflect and bring forth elements of Dr. King's work and a commitment to justice and change and justice for a change. These are trying times we're in, most certainly. But I hope I just hope you'll join us in recommitting to the courage of the drum major for justice and to the notion of we shall not be moved except for moving forward. So I really hope you'll be inspired by all the elements of our program, the message from our own Reverend Randolph, the songs of the World House Choir, the poetry, the essays from our young people, and we even have an excerpt from one of Dr. King's speeches for you. Having said all that, it's time to introduce the Freedom, Peace, and Justice drummers, led by our own Jonfi Jamera. Brother G, it's on you.
Dunumba, strong person's dance. It takes strength to fight for equity every day. This is for Dr. Martin Luther King on his day, drawing up the ancestors. Good job.
So next up, it is my kind of plum-pleasing pleasure to present a friend of mine. Some of you heard him speak at our YS Speaking Up for Justice rally this summer, but he is a longtime activist and the pastor of First Baptist Church here in Yellow Springs. My friend, we often refer to each other as a brother from another mother, Pastor Bill Randolph, to present a focusing message to keep us focused so we can zero in on Dr. King, his message, his meaning, and his strategies. And thank you in advance, Pastor Bill.
My name is Bill Randolph. I'm the pastor of the First Baptist Church here in Yellow Springs, Ohio, and a member of the Martin Luther King Planning Committee. I am indeed grateful and honored to have this prized and precious privilege to share with you online as we commemorate and celebrate the life, the legacy, and love of the drum major for justice and righteousness, Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr. Let me begin by first expressing my appreciation to the MLK Planning Committee, and in particular our leader, Sister Linda Cox, and her team as they have tirelessly over the past several months made plans to ensure that this event would come to pass. I would also like to thank my co-laborer who for a number of years continued to serve as our master of ceremonies, my brother from another mother, Mr. Bomani Moyende. Our theme this year is entitled, Where Do We Go From Here? Hope and Expectation. And if you will allow me just a few moments, I'd like to unpack that theme for you today. In one of his books entitled Strength for Love, Dr. King writes, one of the most agonizing problems within our human experiences is that few, if any of us, live to see our fondest hopes fulfilled. The hopes of our childhood and the promises of mature years are like unfinished symphonies. In a famous painting entitled Hope, George Frederick Watts portrays hope as a tranquil figure who, while seated atop our planet, has her head sadly bowed and plucks a single unbroken harpstring. Is there any one of us who has not faced the agony of blasted hopes and shattered dreams? It has been said that there are many things in this life that you can live and survive without. You can go weeks without food, days without water, but one thing you cannot live without, and that is the power and the presence of hope. There are many things that you can make it without, but you still need to continue to live. But the one thing you cannot live without is hope resting in your life. Hope is possessing the ability to trust that your tomorrow will be better than your today. And as we look back over the last few years, and in particularly 2020, we find our country has been ravaged by a number of COVIDs, COVID-19, COVID-45, COVID-16-11. We've seen the death and the murder of George Floyd. We've seen the murder of Arbery down in Atlanta, Georgia. And we've also seen all this political unrest. And to our horror, just a few days ago, we saw how the Capitol, the White House, had been breached and had been stormed by homegrown terrorists. But let me just remind all of us of something. We are not without hope. We have great expectation that things that where they are now will get much better in the days to come. Sometimes you need a negative in order to have a positive. And I've discovered in life that we will not get better if we do not get better together. As we get better as a community, then our country gets better. As we get better as a country, our world gets better. Hope is possessing the ability to trust in something that's outside of you. Hope is having a confident expectation that tomorrow will be much better than today. I believe that now with the new President-elect Joseph Biden and with Vice President-elect Kamala Harris and their team, I believe that America will get better, that things are going to get better. But I also believe that it's not going to happen as long as I may just spectate on the sidelines and I don't participate by getting in the game. As a young lad growing up in California, one of the things I loved to do was to participate in the game. I didn't like sitting on the bench. And let me just remind all of us that that is the key thing that has to happen with us as a nation. And that is, we have to make sure we put our hands to the plow, that we put our foot to the pedal, and we participate in things that are going on. And it's particularly at the state level. This week, as we continue to celebrate the life and the legacy of Dr. King, I'm reminded of something, a story that I read a few years ago about a man by the name of Arlen Williams. There's a bridge in Washington, D.C. that spans the Potomac River, and it's called the Arlen Williams Bridge. It was given that name because on January 13th, 1982, Air Florida Flight 90 was flying into D.C., and the plane crashed into the Potomac River. Many people perished on that day, but there was one person who made sure that several people did not perish. The story goes on to say that a rescue helicopter came over the river and let a rope down, which was to serve as a lifeline. And the rope came down in front of Arlen Williams. And what did Arlen Williams do? He passed a rope to another passenger, and then he passed the rope to a second, then a third, and then a fourth passenger. In all, 5 people were rescued that day. 5 people had their lives saved because Arlen Williams passed the lifeline to someone else. And on the 6th try, when they attempted to give Arlen Williams the rope, he was too weak and he succumbed and died. Because of his willingness to pass the lifeline and help others people to live, 5 other people are alive today because Arlen Williams passed the lifeline to them. And that's a lot to give thanks for, isn't it? That we have that responsibility, like Arlen Williams, to be able to not just go through life thinking only of ourselves, but be willing to pass the lifeline. Listen to the words as I conclude from the Drum Major for Justice, Dr. Martin Luther King, when he put it like this: if I can help someone as I pass along, if I can cheer someone with a word of song, if I can show someone he's traveling wrong, then my living would not be in vain. As we move very hurriedly in the next few weeks to installing Vice President-elect Kamala Harris and President-elect Joseph Biden, we move forward, not looking at the past, but learning from the past. And we move forward with the hope and expectation that things are going to get better, with the hope and expectation that things will get better, that our tomorrows will be a lot better than our todays, that this COVID virus will be cured, that racism and sexism and all other isms will be blown away. And so I urge you today to keep having hope, keep looking up, and remember that our tomorrows will be much better than our todays. And we have the confident expectation that things will get better. Thank you. My name is Bill Randolph. I'm the pastor of First Baptist Church, Yellow Springs, Ohio.
Okay, thank you, Pastor Randolph. Next up, we have someone who's become a good friend of mine over the last several years. First met her when we started the Justice for John Crawford movement, and you will find her and her singers just about anywhere people are pressing and fighting for justice. So please help me welcome Kathy Roma and the World House Choir with We Shall Not Be Moved, one of my favorite songs ever.
We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. Just like a tree planted by the water. We shall not be moved. No, no. We shall not be moved. We shall not be moved. By water.
Okay, I'd like to introduce our first poet, and she is Alexis McGilvery. She's originally from Fort Worth, Texas. She's currently a sophomore at Antioch College studying computer science and international business. She plans to go to law school. She enjoys working with the Antioch Farm and learning about the earth, an all important endeavor and undertaking. Her poem is called Building on My Chest. Listen up.
Building on my chest. That's the name of this poem. All right. I woke up today with a building on my chest. Yes, a building on my chest. The bricks were made from broken dreams and the mortar from forgotten hope. Yes, there is a building on my chest. The roof was made from rainy days and the windows from nightmares. The stairs were old and rickety from the pain I'd stored away. Don't you know you got a building on your chest? Yes, you have a building on your chest. Your buildings may be concrete and your stairs might be new. But don't laugh at me when I say I got a building on my chest, because I know what mine is made of. It don't matter how big your building is or how small it could be. All that matters is that what you do with it. For me, I take a deep breath and push it off me. It's all about the first step, the action you take, whether you burn it to the ground or push it away, as long as you get to the next day. You will always have fears and doubts, the building trying to block out tomorrow. But as long as you have breath and your heart is pumping blood, you have a chance to make your building smaller, to make tomorrow your own promised land, to make broken dreams turn true, to relight the hope inside of you. How big is the building on your chest? Thank you.
Okay, our next poet is Ariel Johnson. Ariel is a senior at Yellow Springs High School and is one of our local youth organizers for the Black Lives Matter group called YS Speaking Up for Justice. Her poem, and she's the only one I got to hear ahead of time, so uh, heads up, it's beautiful. Her poem is called Music in Me. So Ariel, listen up, people.
Music in me. I am the music in me, and the music in me is Afrofuturism. Afrofuturism is a methodology and practice that allows African Americans to visualize themselves in the future, despite the oppression that dwells in our present and past. To me, Afrofuturism is music. The music that carries us on to better days. We are the pep in your step and the hippity hop of hip hop and R&B. We are the colors of the world. From a dark cocoa brown to roasted chestnuts or caramelized brown sugar. Skin that glistens like silky molasses. We have skin like pearls. And pearls hold the soul of the sea, just like I hold the world with the music in me. As Russell Ledet put it, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. The melody of the melancholy night sung to our ancestors to follow the stars and hold their heads high. And our ancestors followed that light so that our futures may bring liberation and new life. We listen. We keep listening. We are the sway of the trees bending at the knees, but our roots grow down deep, and we never lose the hope that we must keep. We are the smooth, somber sounds of soul and blues. That is the music in me. We are the vibrations of hymns and gospel truths. From yes ma'am and no sir, we are the respect that we deserve. We are the rhythm. We know the beat. But I am tired of seeing people like me being beaten and left to bleed, and although it hurts, nobody can take the music in me. For mankind to move forward, we must accept the beauty of all and listen to their pain. For man to see the rainbow, he must first find the sun through the rain. The rainbow tells us that all colors of the world can coexist equally with an enchanting glow, and someday we'll all hold compassion for our foes. Just as individual notes on a page create symphonies of timeless eloquence, and rainbows are the concertos written by the skies, all of us contain the music of life. Thank you.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed Ariel's poem. Next up is Sierra Leone. I had the pleasure of hearing some of her poetry at the Kwanzaa celebration. I think it's 2 or maybe 3 years ago. Um, Sierra Leone is a healer, teaching artist, and entrepreneur who captivates audiences with her unassuming ingenuity, profound insight, and comedic sense of knowing. I remember that. Sierra has acquired her MA and MBA and is a recipient of the Ohio Governor's Award for her work in community development and participation. She has done commission work over the years for many local and national organizations. Sierra Leone is the president and artistic director of OFP Theater Company, Dayton's hub for urban creative artists. Well, got lost. Okay. Her work with youth arts organizations, schools, community organizations, and regional businesses has been ongoing through her company's educational arm, Signature Educational Solutions. Anyone who is in need of Sierra's power of healing is able to experience it through her most recent venture, Acacia Health and Wellness, a business that offers handmade sage sprays and essential oils. I'm looking forward to hearing her poem titled Standing on the Power of Words, a tribute piece to Martin Luther King and Paul Laurence Dunbar. Ah, fabulous. Listen up, people.
Standing on the Power of Words. Dream catchers, stand firmly at the sparrow nest. Oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet. Dunbar gave us valor, oak and ivy fortitude, tilling the field of immutable debts paid. Fear never deterred King from his credence. Strength for the fight stands firmly on the legacy of audacity. Emancipation Day has come and gone. Echoes of the warrior's prayer breathe life into justice withheld. Hardened hearts rise to the vibration of our ancestors in search of freedom. Every child must share life's labor just as well as every man. Generations ceaselessly sustain the ancient boundary stone of root rhythm. Strides to freedom be heartfelt djembe authenticity. Longevity has its place. Truth be told, tell the truth. Feelings come to teach us something. Don't let separation begin in the mind. King's investment is the shift in wages, policy, and tolerance. Ancestors, rise to the rhythm of voice. Spirit, rise to the beat of the drum. Where you standing on the battlefield? Church step, street corner, schoolhouse, White House, a slave's root and a minister's seed. Nobel Peace. Life ain't been no crystal stair, says Hughes, confirmed by Alberta Williams King. Backbending beast of privilege, there are worse things than forgiving a seat at the table. Like crawling through the ember carnage of civil war, climbing mountains of injustice, crossing bridges of bigotry, and walking miles past inequalities. Hostility smothered, what imagination prevailed, perched on the windowsill of somebodyness. Memoirs of yesterday, we stand at the feet of your life's blueprint. King took psyche level indictment and nailed wealth disparity to the cross. Dunbar understood the sweetness of the flower, a blooming blooms again. For the work done and the battles won. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Thank you and happy MLK Day.
You can support the Yellow Springs Martin Luther King Day program by donating at www.the365projectys.org. Click on the donate button on the homepage and include MLK Day in the notes section after specifying your donation amount. Or you can make a check payable to the 365 Project, including MLK Day in the notes section of your check, and mail it to the 365 Project, P.O. Box 165, Yellow Springs, Ohio 45387. Thank you for supporting the Yellow Springs Martin Luther King Day program.
Hello, my name is Jamie Adolph. I am the language arts teacher here at McKinney Middle School in Yellow Springs, Ohio. I'm also the coordinator for the MLK Peacemaker Essay Contest this year, taking over for Aurelia Blake, who has moved on in her career and to another location in the United States. So we wish her the very best. This year we had some incredibly talented young writers submit essays for this contest. It was very difficult to choose, but right now I'd like to announce the award winners from the two schools and grade levels. So for 5th grade, we have Sherrod Wheeler and Orion Sage Fraboda. For 6th grade, we have Amina Chappelle and Alana Kalfi. And for the McKinney Middle School, we have Sashi Dries and Rue Robertson, both from 7th grade. And for the Yellow Springs High School, we have Jocelyn Herring and Foster Shirky, both 9th graders. I do have to say I was so impressed not only with the level of writing and their skill, but probably more importantly, their passion, their dedication, and commitment to the issues that are affecting all of us in the world today. And to see these young voices reach out and really tell their story and how they feel just really gives me a lot of hope in a time where we can really use a lot of hope. So bravo to them. Congratulations to them and all of their incredible teachers here in the Yellow Springs Schools District. They did a wonderful job with their students, and I just can't say enough about them as well. So please enjoy these wonderful, talented young people reading their passionate essays. Thank you very much.
I have a question for you. Do you think Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is happy? Well, I'm not, because having to fight for freedom. Black people trying to be free of this curse. Black kids having to have a weapon to feel safe. Having to march to be free. Black people being afraid of the very ones who protect them, us. If I have to march, I will march. I will march to be free. I will march to be free of this curse they put on me. No, actually, not me, but the world. He had a dream that was so simple, that we can live together but not apart. But people who think they're superior over blacks don't want that dream. We should have equal rights. We are brothers and sisters. It's not black versus white. It's white and black versus the future. But the future is looking dark. But people who don't want equality just don't care. But we're going to make them care. We will not tolerate this. If I have to march, I will march. If I have to starve, I will starve. I will starve. If I have to fight a war, I will fight a war to be free of this curse they put on the world. So, do you remember the question I asked you? If you do, ask yourself this. Is he happy knowing that all he has done was for nothing? Or are you happy knowing the world's not safe? Well, it's a new year. This year it all changes. Not next year, this year, 2021. It all changes this year. This year I won't have to march. We won't have to carry a weapon to feel safe. We can be protected, not killed. We can have equal rights.
My name is Orion Sage Fukuda. I'm 10 years old. I'm in 5th grade in Mrs. Lowe's class. Where do we go from here? Hope and expectation. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was a civil rights activist. He was an inspirational leader, and he led peaceful protests to try to change unfair laws. He wanted everybody in the world to live together in peace. He wanted people to treat others the way they would want to be treated. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would not be satisfied with where we are today. When I think about where we are now, I can't help but think about our president. The president I've known for the past 4 years says hateful things, only cares about money, not people. He lies, and he doesn't think the laws apply to him. He's racist, his friends are white supremacists, and he doesn't believe that Black Lives Matter. On January 6, 2021, his supporters broke into the Capitol building to not let the Congress people do their job. There's still a lot of wrong things about our country. There's still unfair policing and killing of Black people. There's also abuse of power, like taking away places to vote in Black neighborhoods and putting more in white neighborhoods. The U.S. is not doing enough to help fight climate change. We all need to help change these things. I have hope and expectation that we're going to have a new president who actually cares about people and will try to undo all the suffering and hate the previous president has made. I have hope and expectation that we'll have a new Congress and we'll be able to pass more laws to help people. I have hope and expectation that people will get the COVID vaccine, which will save lives. I have hope and expectation that we can fix the environment and reverse global warming. I have hope and expectation that everyone that will believe that Black Lives Matter. Where do we go from here? Everybody needs help. We all need to take responsibility to do the right thing. We all need to have tolerance for each other. We all need to be kind and respectful to each other. After all that is done, I think Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. would finally be proud.
My name is Mina Chappelle, and this is my Where Do We Go From Here essay. Martin Luther King was an activist, a big part of history. He fought for people of color. Martin Luther King wanted equality for all. People of color were not being treated equally, so he staged protests, marches, boycotts, and rallies. The government would threaten him so that he would stop, but that didn't stop him. Martin Luther King continued to fight for us and our equality. Dr. King died fighting for what he believed in. Many men and women passed away fighting with him. He did a lot to help, but the fight is not over. There's still systematic racism and racist people to this day. People are getting killed because of the color of their skin. People are not getting the same opportunities because of the color of their skin. People are not getting paid the same amount of money because of the color of their skin. The world has not made enough progress in ending racism. We still need to fight. Some of the companies we support and buy from support putting innocent people of color in jail. For example, McDonald's. McDonald's support putting innocent people in jail so they can use inmates to produce frozen foods. That is one of the reasons so many innocent people of color are getting arrested. There are many more companies who do this. Recognizing that racism still exists is not a new concept, but some people are just getting introduced to the importance of the Black Lives Matter movement. We need to continue and be vocal about all social injustice. Racism is more than using slang or derogatory terms. It's also systematic and has been woven into American culture and history. Watching movies, reading books, following the news, and the Black Lives Matter hashtag are all great ways to learn about history and systematic racism and what needs to change. But after indulging this information, take time to discuss with your family, friends, and community. That's a start to educate, to take in the information. After you get an understanding of what's going on, you can start to attend protests, rallies, sit-ins, town hall meetings, etc. When you see a person in a position of power mistreating someone, stay and be a witness. You have the right to film law enforcement if necessary. That can help raise awareness. We need to come together as a community. It is a good thing to recognize and acknowledge everyone's differences and different cultures. No one should be treated differently because of their differences. I may have a different skin complexion than you, but that does not mean I should be treated less than. We are one. We are all human beings. We need to find our own ways to speak up and act against racism. Look for opportunities to speak out against racism in everything you do. It is going to take all of us working together to ensure our community is a place where everyone is truly welcomed.
Where do we go from here? Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that." 2020 has been a very unexpected year. Some people may ask, where do we go from here? I know that wherever we go and whatever happens, as Martin Luther King said, we need to push out the darkness with light. We need to carry on and approach the new tomorrow with love, courage, thought, unity, and being able to have hope. In 2020, it was really hard for everyone. Lives were lost, the streets were filled with angry and hurt people, and our world was locked down. During this pandemic, not only were millions of lives lost, but we had to do things much differently than most were used to. Many schools were shut down and I had to do online school. This made it very difficult for students to focus and have social interaction. Lots of students went into a state of depression. Almost everyone did. There was lots of conflict in our country, and there still is. Right now, it's 2021, and just a few days ago, Trump supporters stormed into the Capitol building during the process of counting the votes for our next president. It was devastating to see because the police and National Guards did nothing about it. The protesters were all Trump supporters and white, and the guards did little to push them back. During the many protests for Black Lives Matter because of the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and many more, the people that were in these protests were tear gassed, arrested, and forcefully pushed out of the way. My question is, we are all human, so why are all people not treated like they are human? In the Constitution, the beginning of it says, "We the people," talking about all Americans and humans. The people in our state and country were never treated equally and still aren't today. Martin Luther King Jr. had dreams and hopes, and so do I. I hope that as we carry on the new tomorrow, life will be better. I hope that everyone will be treated like they are equally human. I hope that we will be able to find our way out of the pandemic. I hope that people will realize that what we are doing to our planet is going to ruin our world. We are harming animals and inhaling toxins every day. Martin Luther King Jr. never gave up. He continued to protest peacefully even when he would get arrested and hurt. We can't give up. It is up to you as an American citizen to make our world a better place.
Hi, my name is Sashi, and today I'm going to be reading you my MLK Peacemaker essay. Where do we go from here? Hopes and expectations. When will it end? When will there no longer be people standing in the streets fighting for what should already be theirs? When will we stop hurting people? When will we stop judging people for their differences? When does this end? Will it be soon? Will it end at all? We hope one day things will finally be truly equal, but where do we go from here? We've made a great amount of change, but there is still so much to be done. Can we do it? Who would have thought 2 colors would cause so much harm? Today we can live our lives with black or white skin and go about our day normally, right? There's no more slavery a black person can do about anything a white person can do. But history continues to repeat itself. Martin Luther King was a civil rights activist. Dr. King is famous for his "I Have a Dream" speech, which truly sparked a movement. He was largely responsible for the passage of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. He changed the world, yet he was killed, and he never got to see his dream come true. It is almost 50 years later, and his dream still hasn't come true. What has happened in these past years is terrible. So many black lives have gone too soon. George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Ahmaud Arbery, Botham Jean, Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin, Eric Garner, Philando Castile, Samuel DuBose, Sandra Bland, Walter Scott, Jordan Davis, and many more. Police thought these people were just so dangerous. They got no say, no voice. They were just killed. They deserved reason, closure, a voice, and a goodbye. They had families, maybe children. They had lives. And for them to be robbed of that one life that they get for the color of their skin is just wrong in so many ways. Recently, people have been protesting and standing up against police brutality and its racism in the police force. People will take any chance to record and show the world what's happening, to show the world that this must stop. Racism isn't history. Slavery is history. Martin Luther King and his movement are and will forever be a part of history. But we are still living in a society full of racism. Something some may be familiar with is Blue Lives Matter. Blue Lives Matter is a statement racists have created to contradict Black Lives Matter. It is disappointing that people continue to come up with ways to harm and oppress people of color and their rights. All lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter, and maybe one day that will change when people stop harming and judging people of color, when people stop thinking if you're black or white that has anything to do with what kind of person you are or can be. Maybe one day that will be the world we get to live in. No matter what we do, there will always be people who are racist, but they won't be able to harm others on the behalf of that opinion. But they won't always be able to harm others on the behalf of that opinion. Thank you for listening to my MLK essay, and I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm sorry if I pronounced any of the names of those names earlier wrong, but thank you. Bye.
Martin Luther King Jr. was not only brave, but he was and still is an inspiration to millions of people around the world. He was one of the few people being heard as an activist at this period, and it became a political outrage, and everybody had a different perspective or side. Many people loved him and encouraged what he was doing, while others despised it. The people who hated the idea of equal rights were mostly white men and women who didn't care about the lives of other people because they firmly believed that their lives were more significant than the lives of colored people. And for the people that did believe in him, most of them believed in having equal rights, but not only for the rich and the white and the privileged, but for everybody. Dr. King had a dream on August 28th, 1963, and it's now January 2021, and we still don't have equal rights. On paper, we do, but in reality, people are still being treated like they're others. And yes, it's gotten tremendously better over the years, but Black people are still being killed and harassed, mainly in southern areas. 58 years later, after his speech, we still can't live a life where you can walk at night without being stopped, or get a luxury car without being asked how you could afford something like that. These things go a long way, and being Black is something that you should be proud of, and instead it's being demeaned. I hope that someday children will have to wake up to a world where they can't be accepted because of the color of their skin. And I hope that someday we will have a Black woman as our president.
Hello, my name is Jocelyn Herring. I'm 14 years old and I'm in 9th grade. The title of my essay is Here's Where We Go. Dear 2020, you're one of the hardest challenges we've ever faced. You took away many beautiful souls along with pieces of ours. The pandemic occurred last year and the world shut down. The president continued to ignore social issues and continued to focus on himself. Many people in the U.S. suffered. Many Native American sisters have been abducted, people still suffer at our borders, and Black people are still being killed and targeted. The Black Lives Matter movement has been under a microscope ever since the murders of Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Tamir Rice, and many others. All these people were wrongfully killed and have not gotten justice for their lives being taken. Some of us choose to ignore the issue because we know it does not affect us. We might choose to ignore it, but for the people like myself, we can't ignore people in our community being killed. So where do we go from here? One day, my brother was going out with his friends, and he came out of his room and down the hallway to my mother's room to open the door. My mother and I were sitting in her room watching Netflix as we usually do together on the weekends. My mother picked up the remote and paused the TV, and he said goodbye to her. This time was different because she stopped him and said, "You can't go out like that." He had on a black zip-up hoodie, and you could hear the fear in my mother's voice when she said, "You can't wear that out because I don't want the next time I see you to be on the news." He didn't at first understand why he couldn't wear the same thing as his white counterparts, but he understood after she said what she did. Why do certain people have to fear for their lives because of what they wear? This brings up the question, where do we go from here? It's a new year, and with Biden coming into office, we might actually be able to get some problems solved. A big problem that needs to be solved in this country is the racism against all people of color. From here, we can start getting vaccines out for COVID-19. We can also start learning how to love and respect each other regardless of who we were, because that's not who we are now. People at our borders should be freed because they just want a better life where they can thrive. And Native American people need more protection so there won't be continued abductions. The Black people in the US need justice for all of their brothers and sisters harmed in racially aggravated assaults and killings. 2021 should be the year of prosperity and forgiveness. From here, I think we should work together. Because without all of us, there is no community. And we need each other. So let's forgive but not forget what we're trying to work towards. So dear 2020, you were a challenge, but not one that we couldn't handle.
Hi, I am Foster Sharkey, and this is a recording of my essay. For the entirety of the United States' long history, race relations and racial justice have always been a problem. For almost the first century of our nation's history, Black and brown people were owned and enslaved by whites, treated as property and not as people. They were forced to work long, grueling hours without pay or reward. The Civil War abolished slavery in America and ensured all people would be treated as human beings and eventually have the right to vote. But those last two rules, laid by the 14th and 15th Amendments, were not heard by some states. Blatantly racist and discriminatory segregation laws were soon put in place after Reconstruction collapsed. Black and brown people were forced to use different bathrooms, restaurants, trains, and more than white people, just because of the color of their skin. In addition, racist laws like poll taxes prevented Black people from voting, a blatant violation of the 15th Amendment that was largely ignored by the government for an excruciating long time. Excuse me. Change finally came in the 50s and 60s when the civil rights movement took off. Led by civil rights leaders Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, Malcolm X, and more, this movement demanded the simple right to live normally among society, without being unfairly singled out for a physical appearance they had no control over. As a result of this movement, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, and the 24th Amendment were all passed. Despite the progress we have made over the past 2.5 centuries, we still have a long way to go to ensure racial equality for all. The most glaring and obvious problem, highlighted in recent years by the Black Lives Matter movement, is police brutality in our broken criminal justice system. An increasingly weaponized police force has been groomed to attack any presence of danger. Unfortunately, any presence of danger has led to police officers attacking, shooting, and killing Black and brown people without any sign of threat, just because of their skin color. Look at the recent assault on the U.S. Capitol. Not only were the Capitol Police completely inept at stopping the mob from breaching the Capitol building, they mostly treated the majority white mob of rioters with little hostility. Imagine if that had been a group of Black Lives Matter protesters. Actually, you don't have to imagine. Just look at the bouts of completely unwarranted violence exhibited by police during the summer's protest over the murder of George Floyd. But aside from the most obvious problem, there is also the inability of many minority families to get ahead in the economy. Still present school segregation in many communities, voter suppression, and many more issues that face Black and brown communities. In the near future, we must continue protesting racial inequality in America, from police brutality to the criminal justice system to voter suppression and war. It worked in the 50s and 60s, and there's no reason to stop now. There is hope in the now unified Democratic government to get real change done. We just have to fight for it. Because we can't let George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner, and the countless others killed by police violence to die in vain. Thank you.
Many windows, one light.
Many waters, one sea. All lifted hearts are free. Many windows, one light. Many waters, one sea. All lifted hearts are free.
In the Talmud of the Jewish tradition, the sage Hillel said, "What is hateful to you, do not do to others." This is the whole of the law. All the rest is commentary.
In the Hindu legend of the Mahabharata, the divine Krishna declares, "This is the sum of duty. Do nothing unto others which would cause you pain if done to you."
It is written, it is taught, may it be so.
In the Gospel of Matthew and the Christian scriptures, the Messiah Jesus says, "Whatever you wish that others would do to you, do so to them."
In the Buddhist text of the Udana Varga, the student is urged, "Hurt not others in ways that you yourself find hurtful."
It is written, it is taught, may it be so.
Many windows, one light. Many waters, one sea. All lifted hearts are free.
In the Muslim hadith of An-Nawawi, the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, teaches, "No one of you is a believer until he desires for his brother that which he desires for himself."
Baha'u'llah, prophet and founder of the Baha'i Faith, wrote, "And if thine eyes be turned towards justice, choose thou for thy neighbor that which thou choosest for thyself."
It is written, it is taught, may it be so.
Many windows, one light. Many waters, one sea. All lifted hearts are free.
The Oglala Lakota spiritual leaders, Black Elk, wrote, "All things are our relatives. What we do to everything, we do to ourselves."
As a Sikh, I believe I am a stranger to no one and no one is a stranger to me. Indeed, I am a friend of all.
It is written, it is taught, may it be so.
Okay, thank you, World House Choir. Well, the World House Choir has been involved for, I can't remember how many years, but they always do such a wonderful job, and I can hardly imagine doing this program without them. So thank you, Dr. Kathy, and all the rest of you all. So next up, we have the presentation of the Community Peacemaker Awards by my friend Loxley Orr.
As told in the book, The Art of Peace, Morihei Ueshiba was history's greatest martial artist. Even as an old man of 80, he could disarm any foe, down any number of attackers, and pin an opponent with a single finger. Although invincible as a warrior, he was above all a man of peace who detested fighting, war, and any kind of violence. Combining both his strategic warrior abilities with his nonviolent principles, he developed and practiced his way, the martial art which is called Aikido, translated the art of peace. The person whom we have chosen to receive the Peacemaker Award, Bomani Moyende, is a man of strong physical stature who dons a signature no-nonsense expression. But his strong persona is much more complex than first impression might suggest. However, it does offer a glimpse into his stronger no-nonsense character, as one through his relentless activism successfully juxtaposes the qualities of a warrior, foregoing the art of war, while maneuvering strategically in pursuit of justice, demonstrating the art of peace through his nonviolent endeavors. But make no mistake, his pursuit of justice and peace does not come easily, and has not come without opposition, challenges, and conflict. And he will readily tell you, no justice, no peace. Echoing the sentiment expressed in the words of Dr. Martin Luther King, peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice. Some may agree being a peacemaker requires the following qualities: being compassionate, one who goes out of his or her way to help the physical, mental, or emotional pains of another, one who bears the burden of others. With compassion, Bomani champions the rights for Black and Brown Americans through the participation and support of the Black Lives Matter movement. He bears the burdens that accompany its causes. By being an advocate, one who pleads for or argues in support of another's cause. Acting as an advocate, Bomani took up the charge to fight for justice for 22-year-old John Crawford III, who was killed by police officers while shopping in the Beaver Creek Walmart. He has continued to advocate for John's family through rallies, letter writing campaigns to the courts, marches, and memorials. Most recently, August of this past summer, joined by nearly 150 villagers, friends, and John Crawford's father, Bomani led a silent march through downtown Yellow Springs, culminating in a sobering memorial and candlelight vigil at Knowles Lawn. Being a leader, teacher, or mentor, one who teaches and or gives guidance to one often younger or less experienced. Bomani is the mentor to the Yellow Springs Speaking Up for Justice Wrecking Crew, who affectionately and respectfully call him Mr. Bomani. They are a group of young, passionate, hardworking social justice advocates, ranging from elementary to high school ages, who by his example and guidance excellently organize and rally peacefully for justice Saturday mornings for 25 weeks straight this past spring and summer, in response to the murder of George Floyd, the killing of Breonna Taylor, and other social atrocities. We're like drummers in Africa and indigenous cultures who beat the drums to call the tribes together to create a sense of unity with one another. Bomani, along with Gyamfi, literally beat the drums for those same 25 weeks, calling the tribes of Yellow Springs to come together in unity with the young people for the common cause of educating, spreading awareness, and rallying fairness and justice in pursuit of peace. Dictionary defines a warrior as a strong, relentless soldier involved in a fight who doesn't give up, and a peacemaker as a person who helps others solve conflict to reach a peaceful solution. Possessing the tenacity and courage of historic peacemakers such as Jesus, Morihei Yeshiba, Buddha, Gandhi, Thich Nhat Hanh, Malcolm X, John Lewis, and Martin Luther King Jr., all nonviolent yet powerful forces to be reckoned with. Bomani, through many media and demonstrations, which include his letter writing, essays, poems, drums, and strong voice through megaphone or microphone, has exemplified such characteristics. Scripture says, "Blessed are the peacemakers, for they are the sons and daughters of God." Therefore, it is my great pleasure and honor to present the Community Peacemaker Award for 2021 to the deserving Mr. Bomani Moyende.
Well, so I'm pretty blown away by Loxley's presentation. So I must say, yeah, I got a sneak peek at that, and it made me kind of nervous. So to the point where I thought I wouldn't be able to just kind of like freelance respond. So I have a written response. So excuse me while I read this. So I must say, once again, I got a sneak peek at Loxley's presentation, and it made me kind of nervous. And I'm not one who unnerves quickly. So I actually found myself looking around the room and just kind of wondering if maybe she had me mixed up with somebody. The committee offered this to me last year, and I just kind of like flat turned it down, not being able to reconcile myself as a peacemaker kind of guy, especially considering the people we presented this award to in the past, real sweet people that just exuded peace. The kind of people you just want to run up on and hug on, like Mrs. Bogner, Willa Dallas, Isabel Newman, Phyllis Jackson, people like that. I mean, people just don't do that to me. Some even cross the street when they see me coming. But my often seen sternness is born of a fear of us getting too comfortable, too complacent with the status quo. And that's a characteristic I view as taking hold after the push for civil rights in the 60s, where I thought like far too many people sought out warm, fuzzy comfort zones and took their eyes off the prize. So I came to view the desire for peace, that peace and kumbaya quiet, as dangerous, as history shows us that there's always been a bitter, violent backlash in response to even the slightest Black progress. Some of the backlash is subtle and kind of escapes our view, our grasp, our understanding. So Loxley mentioned my response to the murder of young John Crawford in the Beaver Creek Walmart. I can probably count on my fingers and toes the number of good nights sleep I've had since that incident. That atrocity and the systemic racist response to it, I believe, altered my central nervous system. I'm not complaining. A lot of people have been through a lot more than I have, particularly the family members of people that have been taken this way. But so, yeah, I'm not complaining. It's just a thing that happened. But I view white supremacy as an ever-present threat, a threat to people who simply want to live our lives. Our ability to take it in stride for so long has led directly to the existential crisis we exist in today. This monster must be driven from us. We have to create a society that leaves no platform, not even a closet, where white supremacy can flout its ideas as acceptable truths. We have to challenge ourselves and each other to get a firm grip on what Dr. King called the fierce urgency of now. So thank you, Loxley, for arranging your thoughts in such an eloquent and thoughtful manner that has broadened and sharpened my view of the relationship between peace and justice. I will never forget the sentiment of your thoughts. So you made me an offer I couldn't refuse. And thanks to the committee who took it upon themselves to consider me setting me in line with some of the past recipients or maybe out of line, depending on how you look at it. So thank you all very much. And now we can move on to the next phase of our program. Okay, next up we have a wonderful and exciting announcement actually from Basim Blunt and Luke Dennis of our local public radio station WYSO. So perk your ears up, you will want to hear this.
Welcome everyone and happy MLK Day 2021. I'm Basim Blunt, producer at Dayton Youth Radio from WYSO, and
I'm Luke Dennis. I'm the general manager of WYSO.
As we celebrate Martin Luther King Day, we always get together to honor Dr. King and the vision of equality and racial justice for this one day. But what happens throughout the year? Some of us go back to our jobs, our homes, and our school, and we kind of get into the same rut. I'm really proud that WYSO has really put in plans to bring equality and racial justice into our workplace in concrete ways. And our general manager, Luke Dennis, is going to tell you a little bit about what we're doing this year.
Yeah, we're proud. Just very briefly, we wanted to move immediately from just talking about it to putting action steps in place that would transform WYSO and make it a more diverse, equitable, and inclusive organization. So we adopted 11 action items. I'll mention very briefly just 3 of them.
Yeah, that's good.
Right, is that okay?
Awesome.
So 1, we agreed to always pay our interns, no longer offer unpaid internships. It opens up work opportunities to a whole new, bigger world of young people who might want to work in media and go on to make change in their own communities, right?
That's always the toughest thing, being an intern. You want the experience, but you need money to get to work.
To live, to buy groceries, to pay rent. So that happened already. This year, we are now paying every intern who works with us.
That's right.
2, we've started an ongoing, I made some notes, a comprehensive pay equity review of all staff to make sure that everyone is paid fairly, regardless of gender or race. So we're tying compensation to national benchmarks provided by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting.
That's awesome.
Based on what you do, not who you are. And then the final one is, we're setting diversity goals based on equitable representation for our staff. In 3 years, we want the composition of our staff to reflect the diversity of the community we serve. And in 5 years, we want our programming and our audience to also reflect like the actual census data of this place that we serve.
That is totally awesome.
So that's a 3-year and a 5-year plan. So those are 3 things we're working on at WYSO that we're proud to have kicked off this year.
And we can see with metrics, you can see how well you're doing when as we try to meet these goals. And we encourage all of you to bring ideas like this back to your workplace and school and our community here in Yellow Springs to really honor the vision of Dr. King.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Take care. On behalf of WYSO.
Okay, so this brings us to our excerpt from one of Dr. King's speeches, which was, "Where do we go from here?" He gave this speech in Atlanta in 1967 during the 10th annual conference of the SCLC, as you know, a civil rights organization that he led during the civil rights movement. So this excerpt is about 12 minutes long, the final 12 minutes of about a 1 hour speech. So listen up, please, and see what you can gain from the words of Dr. King. You know, there's hundreds and thousands of people who have written about what Dr. King said and what he did, but there's really no substitute for listening to him speak his own words. So please listen carefully.
I want to say to you as I move to my conclusion, as we talk about where do we go from here, we must honestly face the fact that the movement must address itself to the question of restructuring the whole of American society. There are 40 million poor people here. One day we must ask the question, why are there 40 million poor people in America? And when you begin to ask that question, you're raising a question about the economic system, about a broader distribution of wealth. When you ask that question, you begin to question the capitalistic economy. And I'm simply saying that more and more, we've got to begin to ask questions about the whole society. We are called upon to help the discouraged beggars in life's marketplace. But one day we must come to see that an edifice which produces beggars needs restructuring. It means that questions must be raised. And you see, my friends, when you deal with this, you begin to ask the question, who owns the oil? You begin to ask the question, who owns the iron ore? You begin to ask the question, why is it that people have to pay water bills in a world that's 2/3 water? These are words that must be said. Now, don't think you have me in a bind today. I'm not talking about communism. What I'm talking about is far beyond communism. My inspiration didn't come from Karl Marx. My inspiration didn't come from Engels. My inspiration didn't come from Trotsky. My inspiration didn't come from Lenin. Yes, I read Communist Manifesto and Das Kapital a long time ago. And I saw that maybe Marx didn't follow Hegel enough. He took his dialectics, but he left out his idealism and his spiritualism, and he went over to a German philosopher by the name of Feuerbach and took his materialism and made it into a system that he called dialectical materialism. I have to reject that. What I'm saying to you this morning, communism forgets that life is individual. Capitalism forgets that life is social. And the kingdom of brotherhood is found neither in the thesis of communism nor the antithesis of capitalism, but in a higher synthesis. It's found in a higher synthesis that combines the truths of both. Now, when I say question in the whole society, it means ultimately coming to see that the problem of racism, the problem of economic exploitation, and the problem of war are all tied together. These are the triple evils that are interrelated. And if you will let me be a preacher just a little bit. One night a juror came to Jesus. And he wanted to know what he could do to be saved. Jesus didn't get bogged down on the kind of isolated approach of what you shouldn't do. Jesus didn't say, now, Nicodemus, you must stop lying. He didn't say, Nicodemus, now you must not commit adultery. He didn't say, now, Nicodemus, you must stop cheating if you're doing that. He didn't say, Nicodemus, you must stop drinking liquor if you're doing that excessively. He said something altogether different because Jesus realized something basic. That if a man will lie, he will steal. And if a man will steal, he will kill. So instead of just getting bogged down on one thing, Jesus looked at him and said, Nicodemus, you must be born again. In other words, your whole structure must be changed. A nation that will keep people in slavery for 244 years will thingify them and make them things. And therefore they will exploit them and poor people generally, economically. And a nation that will exploit economically will have to have foreign investments and everything else, and it will have to use its military might to protect them. All of these problems are tied together. What I'm saying today is that we must go from this convention and say, America, you must be born again. So I conclude by saying today that we have a task, and let us go out with a divine dissatisfaction. Let us be dissatisfied until America will no longer have a high blood pressure of creeds and an anemia of deeds. Let us be dissatisfied until the tragic walls that separate the outer city of wealth and comfort from the inner city of poverty and despair shall be crushed by the battering rams of the forces of justice. Let us be dissatisfied until they live on the outskirts of hope, are brought into the metropolis of daily security. Let us be dissatisfied until slums are cast into the junk heaps of history, and every family will live in a decent, sanitary home. Let us be dissatisfied until the dark yesterdays of segregated schools will be transformed into bright tomorrows of quality integrated education. Let us be dissatisfied until integration is not seen as a problem, but as an opportunity to participate in the beauty of diversity. Let us be dissatisfied until men and women, however black they may be, will be judged on the basis of the content of their character, not on the basis of the color of their skin. Let us be dissatisfied. Let us be dissatisfied until every state capital be housed by a governor who will do justly, who will love mercy, and who will walk humbly with his God. Let us be dissatisfied until from every city hall justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. Let us be dissatisfied until that day when the lion and the lamb shall lie down together, and every man will sit under his own vine and fig tree, and none shall be afraid. Let us be dissatisfied until men will recognize that out of one blood God made all men to dwell upon the face of the earth. Let us be dissatisfied until that day when nobody will shout white power, when nobody will shout black power, but everybody will talk about God's power and human power. And I must confess, my friends, that the road ahead will not always be smooth. There will still be rocky places of frustration, meandering points of bewilderment. There will be inevitable setbacks here and there. There will be those moments when the buoyancy of hope will be transformed into the fatigue of despair. Our dreams will sometime be shattered, and our ethereal hopes blasted. We may again, with tear-drenched eyes, have to stand before the bier of some courageous civil rights worker whose life will be snuffed out by the dastardly acts of bloodthirsty mobs. But difficult and painful as it is, we must walk on in the days ahead with an audacious faith in the future. And as we continue our charted course, we may gain consolation from the words so nobly left by that great black Bart, who was also a great freedom fighter of yesterday, James Weldon Johnson. Stony the road we trod, bitter the chastening rod felt in the days when hope unborn had died. Yet with a steady beat have not our weary feet come to the place for which our fathers sighed. We have come over the way that with tears has been watered. We have come treading our path through the blood of the slaughtered, out from the gloomy past, till now we stand at last, where the bright gleam of our bright star is cast. Let this affirmation be our ringing cry. It will give us the courage to face the uncertainties of the future. It will give our tired feet new strength as we continue our forward stride toward the city of freedom. When our days become dreary with low hovering clouds of despair, when our nights become darker than 1,000 midnights, let us remember that there is a creative force in this universe working to pull down the gigantic mountains of evil. A power that is able to make a way out of no way and transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows. Let us realize that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. Let us realize that William Cullen Bryant is right. Truth crushed to earth will rise again. Let us go out realizing that the Bible is right. Be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. This is our hope for the future. With this faith, we will be able to sing in some not too distant tomorrow with a cosmic past tense. We have overcome. We have overcome. Deep in my heart, I did believe we would overcome.
Okay, we want to thank everybody who made it through to the end of this program. This brings us to the conclusion. And I have the following acknowledgments. Excuse me. First, John Booth, Cadet Brockington, Linda Cox, special thanks to all of these people. Alyssa Isaac, Kevin Magruder, Loxley Orr, Reverend William Randolph, Deacon Paul Richardson, John Paul Robinson, Jamie Adolph, the World House Choir, Antioch College, WYSO, and all of the MLK Day program participants, including the youth who led the march this morning. So in the words of YS Speaking Out for Justice, please dedicate the rest of this day to some remembrance of Dr. King, some acts of service, study, storytelling, affirmation, anti-racist planning, and do something. Do something. We hollered all summer long, do something, do something, do something. We've got to stop this madness around us. Do something.
Make a difference, hope and change be our goal. Love and peace and justice and truth. Marching with families, with our elders, with our youth. Building a beloved community. Diversity is strength. There is power in our unity. Color, gender, ethnicity. We respect them all with sanity. A part of our humanity. Sisterhood, brotherhood, personhood. Marching our feet up the street through the neighborhood. Marching in step, showing support for the common good. Come, feel our vitality. Come be a witness. Joining our universality. Make your mission the human condition you see. When our people stand together, we will know equality.